SLT Mobitel Home Broadband සමගින් non-stop ගමනකට data බෝවන්. SLT Mobitel Home Broadband සමගින් non-stop ගමනකට data බෝවන්.
වැඩිම ආරක්ෂාව අඩුම වෙලකට කෙටයක් රුපියල් 54යි.
Tonight, dodged a bullet. Committee on Public Enterprises reveals that the government would have made a loss of $450 million if coal tender was awarded to the Black Sands company. Full support. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa pledges full support of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna to President Ranil Wickremesinghe and his plans. Communication is key. Sri Lanka needs to communicate its human rights action plan to garner support from the international community, says human rights advocate.
What we do in Sri Lanka is not communicating. Our propaganda plans and our communication plans only near the Human Rights Council sessions only.
Resumption. Controversial Russian national carrier Aeroflot to resume flights to Colombo tomorrow. Tourism Minister says permission also granted for Russian charter airline Azur to commence from November. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Saturday, the 8th of October 2022.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, you are joining the primetime English news of AdaDerana 24 and I'm Andrew Bernard. Now, during yesterday's Committee on Public Enterprises meeting, it was revealed that if the government of Sri Lanka would have made a loss of $450 million if the controversial coal tender was awarded to the company Black Sands. This is due to the company looking to purchase a ton of coal priced at $284.84, when in contrast the same quantity could have been purchased at $179.55 according to the Russian index.
අපි දන්න තරමට ඔක්තෝබර් මාසේ 15 වෙනිදා වෙනකොට මේ ගල් ලඟුරු ටික ඉවර වෙලා කඩිනමින් ගල් ලඟින්න කරන අවස්ථාවක් තිබුණා. හැබැයි මේකේ මොකද්ද ඔබතුමා දකින දේ දැන්?
ඉන්න විදියට මේකේ අපි ලොස් එකක් කැල්කියුලේට් කළා නෑ. මොකද ලොස් එක රජයට වෙලා කියලා අපිට කියන්න බෑ. ගල් ලඟුරු ප්‍රසම්පාදනයේ දුන්නේ නෑ ඔය කියන ආයතනයේට.
අපි එක දෙයක් කරන්න ඕන විග්‍රහ රාජපතිතුමා දැන් මේකේ ඔය කමිටිස් වල හිටියේ රජයේ නිලධාරීන්ට අපි සවන් දීලා නෑ. ලොකු ග්‍රීවන්ස් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒක නිසා මං හිතන්නේ අපි මේ කණ්ඩායම ගෙනල්ලා
මේ ප්‍රසම්පාදන කමිටුවේ සමාජික නිලධාරීන් හට නැවත ප්‍රසම්පාදන කටයුතු සඳහා සහභාගී වීම චම්පිකමතුමා ජීවිතාන්තය දක්වා නැවතුවත් කමක් නැහැ. මං කියන්නේ ඒගොල්ලන්ටත් අහුම්කම් දෙන්න කියලා.
ඔබතුමා කියන්නේ මේ අහුම්කම් දීම වැදගත්කමක් තියෙනවනේ.
නෑ අහුම්කම් දෙන්නේ ඉතින් ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ ඒක.
මට පොඩි කාරණයක් පැහැදිලි කරන්න උතුමාගේ. මගේ වාර්තාව මං කියුවා. ඔව්. ඊළඟට උතුමා කියලා තියෙනවා මේ ගල් ලංගුරු එකේ සංයුක්ත මිල ඇමරිකානු එක්සත් ජනපද ඩොලර් 284යි 784ක් තමයි කොම්පොසයිට් ඉන්ඩෙක්ස් එකට අනුව ටොන් එක වෙන්නේ. හැබැයි මේ RCI රෂියා ඉන්ඩෙක්ස් එකට අනුව ඒක ඩොලර් 179යි 755. වෙන වචනින් කියනවා නම් සෑම ටොන් එකකටම ඩොලර් 100ක්. කොපමණ ප්‍රමාණයකටද? ටොන් මිලියන 4.5කට සහ +- 10. ඒ කියන්නේ මේක වුණා නම් ඩොලර් මිලියන 450ක ප්‍රශ්නයක් මෙතන තියෙනවා. ඒතකොට එතුමා කියලා තියෙනවා මේ ගැන මේ ලන්සු මිල අඩු කර ගැනීමට සාකච්ඡා කිරීමට අවස්ථා තිබියදී එවැනි උත්සාහයක් හෝ ගෙන ඇති බව නිරීක්ෂණය නොවිය කියලා මේ අපේ විගණකාධිපතිතුමා කියලා තියෙනවා.
අනිත් එක තමයි මෙතන තියෙන ලොකුම ඊළඟ ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි අපේ රෙජිස්ටර්ඩ් කම්පැනි එකක් නෙවෙයි මේ බ්ලැක් සෑන්ඩ් කියන කම්පැනි එක. සහ ඒක අපි මිඩිකවල් කරන්න දවසකට කලින් ඒ කම්පැනි එක අපිට ලියලා තියෙනවා. මේක ඒ කම්පැනි එක නෙවෙයි යාගේ මව් සමාගමත් නෙවෙයි කියන්න බෑ ඒක රිලේෂන්ෂිප් එකක් නෑ ඇත්තටම ඩිරෙක්ට්ලි. ඒ කම්පැනි එක අපිට ලියලා තියෙනවා මීට පස්සේ අපිට අගෝස්තු වලින් පස්සේ මේ රෂියන් කොන්ෆ්ලික්ට් එකත් එක්ක ඒගොල්ලන්ට ගල් ලඟුරු දෙන්න බැරි වෙයි කියලා. ඒතකොට අපේ ඒ වෙනුවෙන් එයාගේ සබ්සිඩියරි කම්පැනි එකක් විදියට ෆෝම් කරලා තියෙන මේ බ්ලැක් සෑන්ඩ් කියන කම්පැනි එක තමයි ඉදිරියට කටයුතු කරන්න කියන එක එයා කියලා තියෙනවා.
මේගොල්ලෝ සමාගම මොකක්ද රෙසොලූෂන් එකක් දීලා මේගොල්ලන්ට
මෙහෙමයි සමාගමක රෙසොලූෂන් එකක් දුන්නයි කියලා මේ සමාගමෙන් ගන්න කියලා ඒක ඒ සමාගම් දෙක අතර තියෙන සම්බන්ධතාවයක් මිසක් අපිට ඇෂුරන්ස් එකක් නැහැ. ලංකාවට මොකද අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙන්නේ කම්පැනි එක අපිට රෙජිස්ටර් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ සූකේජි කියන කම්පැනි එක.
පැහැදිලිව මෙතුමා මේක කියලා තියෙනවා. ප්‍රසම්පාදන මාර්ගෝපදේශ 2006 සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම උල්ලංඝනය කළා තියනවා කියලා. මේ බ්ලැක් සෑන්ඩ් එක පිළිගැනීමමයි. තැමැතුමත් කිව්වා නඩුවක් පැවරුවා. නඩුව පැවරුපු හින්දා තමයි බ්ලැක් සෑන්ඩ් ගියේ කියලා. නඩුවේ කිසිම නියෝගයක් නැත. නමුත් බ්ලැක් සෑන්ඩ් එක ගිහින් තියෙන්නේ ඒගොල්ලන්ට අර පර්ෆෝමන්ස් බොන්ඩ් එකක් නිසි දවසේ දෙන්න බැරි වෙච්ච නිසා තමයි ඒ බිඩ් එක ෆේල් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. නැතු මේ නඩු ප්‍රශ්නයක් මත නෙවෙයි.
Now, ending the 4-month flight operation hold to Sri Lanka, Russia's national carrier Aeroflot is set to resume flights from Moscow to Colombo twice a week, starting tomorrow. Meanwhile, Minister of Tourism Harin Fernandez said that permission was also granted to Russian charter flight Azur Air to operate flights to Sri Lanka.
June this year, Russia's state-owned airline Aeroflot suspended commercial flights to Colombo after a leased aircraft operated by the airline was grounded in Colombo on a court order sought by the owner of the aircraft. The airline said it was suspending flights to Colombo due to the unreliability of the situation in terms of ensuring unhindered flights of the airline's aircraft to Sri Lanka. However, last month Aeroflot announced that it will be resuming its flights from Moscow to Colombo. According to the airline, operations will resume from tomorrow via an Airbus A330 aircraft and will initially operate twice a week on Thursdays and Sundays. Meanwhile, taking to Twitter, Minister of Tourism Harin Fernando said the permission has been given to the Russian charter airline Azur Air to fly 4 charter flights per week starting from early November. The minister also said that this development would significantly increase tourist inflow from Russia to Sri Lanka.
The former chairman of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka, Professor Pratibha Mahanama, says Sri Lanka has to communicate the country's human rights action plan in order to obtain the support of the international community against resolutions. Speaking at the launch of the 7th volume of Foreign Policy Perspectives, Professor Mahanama said Sri Lanka's propaganda is only near the Human Rights Council, while the Tamil diaspora is engaged in widespread propaganda. Meanwhile, Speaker of Parliament Mahinda Yapa Abewardana says it is essential to carefully analyse the present geopolitical world.
The launch of Volume 7 of the book Foreign Policy Perspectives, titled Promoting Tourism, Employment, Investment, Agriculture, Foreign Policy and Education, published by the Ambassadors Forum, was held in Colombo last evening at the Speaker's residence.
Diplomacy is a factor that is needed for a country to lead and be an active member of the group of nations. This is basically our vision and thinking, which we will be putting forward in the future. We hope that this message will be transmitted to the embassies, universities, intellectuals, organizations and governance.
Foreign policy is the thing that which I see the most important thing. When Mrs. Bandaranaike was the Prime Minister, she was maintaining a very high degree of foreign policy, which have been accepted by all the nations of the world and very well recognized everywhere, irrespective of the other geopolitical differences that had at that time. World has changed, situation has changed, the requirements have changed, geographical areas also have changed little by little. So therefore, the present day geopolitical situation of the world, I think we have to have a very careful analysis on our foreign policy. We have had a lot of problems with this foreign policy even up to now. Recently, even the Geneva, we had some drawbacks. And the tourism, of course, we have been trying for the last so many years. And at one time we were successful. Now these days it has come down back again due to various other reasons. In such situation, very careful analysis, very careful work plan or future plan for our tourism will have to be very essential, that our intellectuals will have to think about.
We are getting these type of solutions continuously, and future also we will get it, because we are fully rejecting these proposals. Rejecting is good, but we must have an opportunity to tell the other countries what type of human rights action plan we have in Sri Lanka. If you see the 19 content in this report is totally away from human rights and certain new type of issues which is in every country. What is this economic crime, which is not in the mandate? We are having a good action plan in Sri Lanka. we can closely work with the Commonwealth countries. There is a human rights center in Marlborough House. So we can get the technical support. All these countries where they come with the Western support we have to get. And also we can prove how we have done language reconciliation in Sri Lanka, Sinhala, Tamil, if you have gone to the northern part, and how many LTT prisoners we have released and about to release, and most of the commissions have been appointed. 25,000 war heroes sacrificed their life, and 12,000 already suffering, and this is a unitary country. So therefore, most of these issues are there in Geneva, only showing in a different way. But if they come to Sri Lanka, and if they see Sri Lanka, what is happening, they never vote like that. Now recently the government released the ban of 6 LTT diaspora supporting groups. 384 names were removed from the blacklist, but we have not got the support. So something wrong in somewhere. My proposal number 1, please set up a parliament committee for human rights and see how we can come across with these things. And also it is very, very important, at least we have to see a Truth and Reconciliation Commission at that time. What we do in Sri Lanka is not communicating. Our propaganda plans and our communication plans only near the Human Rights Council sessions only. But LTT diaspora, they spread massively. So therefore, counter-attack unit we need. So they have given 2 years. 51/5, there are 19 points. In 53rd session, we have to give how we are promoting. And then 55th session, we have to give a oral report. And 57th session, we have to give a full report what we have done. Otherwise, now they will complain Sri Lanka not listening for the human rights, and they can go to the Security Council even taking some economic embargoes. So all these things, what I am telling, we have the trumps. We are not playing the trumps. So Ministry of Foreign Affairs must take a leading role and make Sri Lanka human rights flag high.
Now, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, highlights that interest rates were tightened in the country to bring down inflation, but it cannot be lowered even though the government is the highest borrower, as it would only continue to increase the government's domestic borrowings. The CBSL governor said that the only solution would be if the government takes measures to create a surplus in the primary account, which the government could only do by increasing state revenue, which would in turn also take the need for the government to continuously borrow away. Addressing media on the central bank's monthly monetary policy review early this week, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe responded to concerns raised by journalists regarding the impact of the UNHRC resolution allegations of economic crimes in Sri Lanka on the negotiations with the International Monetary Fund.
The UNHRC core group resolution speaks of economic mismanagement. Will this affect our procedure with the IMF of securing the loan?
Basically, we know IMF has not communicated anything on that front. Central bank authorities have not been informed of anything whether that's going to affect. There's no. I don't think that's in my answer. There's separate UN this council or resolution, and IMF, World Bank. All this discussion is a different process. We haven't seen any link.
With inflation projections easing, can we safely say that the tightening cycle is ending?
It's all dependent on the inflation outcome. All I can say, if inflation is trending down faster than we expect, we certainly can say all intention is to, first priority is to bring down curtail inflation. That's the most important thing for the economic stability. Inflation is the worst enemy. A lot of people are complaining because of high interest rates, they can't do business. People are collapsing. It's not because of interest rates. It's because of the high inflation. You look at the cost of production of any business. Finance cost is only about, say, average 9-10%, sometimes 4-5%. Or 90% of the cost of production is also wages, transport, raw materials. All are basically increased as a result of inflation. So if that goes continuously with runaway inflation, then businesses will anyway collapse. That's why the small component is the finance cost. That despite that has been increased, why that has been increased is to curtail the increases of other components, not the cost of production. That's why everyone will have to understand why interest rates need to be maintained at higher levels to control inflation. And once if we see a clear trend of inflation curtail and coming down, then obviously we have a space to bring down interest rates.
High interest rates is also the other side is government is the biggest borrower. You're increasing the debt servicing cost going forward. I mean, would you justify that?
Yeah, I mean, high interest rates, obviously, that's why even the fiscal consolidation, what the government will have to bring is the primary surplus of the fiscal account. That is the important variable that will address the debts, bring the debt into sustainable levels. Primary surplus of deficit means excluding interest expenditure, because that's exogenous variable that government can control. What is under the government control is the revenue and expenditure, excluding interest expenditure. And like any other entity, if the government finds that interests are too high, like any other business or private sector, how to manage is to bring down the borrowings. How they can do that? To bring down the revenue, borrowings, they have to increase revenue. So that's why this is a combination of fiscal policy and increased government revenue so that their borrowing requirements would be lower. And as a result, the interest expenditure also can be lower going forward. And they can achieve the primary surplus at any interest rates. I mean, even that's, I mean, if that argument goes well, even last couple of years, we had very suppressed low interest rates and low government revenues. Led the central bank to print a lot of money. Printing money is cost to the government because it's the treasury bills, bonds, treasury bills buying at 30% interest now. It's not free money. Only way is to, bring down the inflation and also reduce the amount of borrowings that government needs.
Now, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says he will support President Ranil Wickremesinghe and that the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna will move forward with the current president. He made these remarks whilst addressing a SLPP rally meeting in Kalutara today. Speaking during the rally, also Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena added that the SLPP played a crucial role in the presidency of Ranil Wickremesinghe by providing him with the majority in Parliament.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ එක මන්ත්‍රී මගේ මිත්‍රයා පාසල් මිත්‍රයා එක මන්ත්‍රී කෙනෙක්ට ආණ්ඩුවක් පිටවන්න බෑනේ ඒ පාර්ලිමේන්තු බහුතර හයිය තිබුණේ ඕට්ටුව දුන්න හයිය එක්ක තමයි අලුත් ආණ්ඩුව පිටවෙව්වේ අමතක කරන්න එපා මේ සම්මුළුව පැවැත්වීම තවත් පෙරලියක ආරම්භය කියන ටික අපි ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරනවා
ඒ අභියෝග ජයග්‍රහණය කරන්න අපිට ශක්තිය තියෙනවා අද රනිල් එදානම් අපි රනිල්ට බැන්න රනිල් UMP කාර්යය කියලා දැන් ඉන්නේ රනිල් අපිත් එක්ක ඉතින් අපි දැන් රනිල්ට හොඳ කියනවා මොකද දැන් යහමකට හැරිලායි කියලායි මම විශ්වාස කරා ඒක නිසා අපි එතුමාට සහයෝගය දක්වමින් මේ ගමන ඉදිරියට යන්න කටයුතු කරනවායි.
Now, the National Council Subcommittee on Identifying Priorities on Formulating Short-Term and Mid-Term Policies convened in Parliament yesterday. During the meeting, Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa was appointed as its chairman. The subcommittee presented their opinions and suggestions on the formulation of state policies and agreed to call experts in the relevant fields before the subcommittee to share their proposals related to modernization of public administration, health policies, education policies, fisheries and food policies, power and energy policies, and the modernization of climate change policies. Accordingly, members of the subcommittee agreed to submit short-term proposals within 1 month, medium-term proposals within 2 months, and long-term proposals within 3 months. Stay with us for more news after this short break.
රයිනෝ පුතා හැබැයි යා ගෙදර නිදියන්නෙම අමුතු තැනක.
කාලගුණය කොහොමුණත් රයිනෝ නං වහලට සේෆ් තමයි මුළු ගෙදරම. Rhino Cement Roofing Sheets. Then you know Rhino. I know.
Big 3.
Uber Eats මගින් ඉදිරිපත් කරන ආදරයෙන් අවශ්‍යතා ඇතියට අත්‍යවශ්‍ය භාණ්ඩ පරිත්‍යාග කිරීමට වේදිකාවක්.
Welcome back. Now, the Public Utilities Commission says electricity tariff relief will be provided to religious places. According to the PUCSL chairman, Janaka Ratnayaka, religious places that utilize over 180 units would be brought under the general purpose category. Thereby, the tariff applicable for religious places would be 32 rupees per unit with effect from the 10th of August. Following the electricity tariff revision in August, 65 rupees per unit was stipulated for religious places that utilize over 180 units. PUCSL says it decided to revise the rate applicable for a unit after taking into account the appeals made by religious leaders. Accordingly, the electricity bill of religious places will be slashed with a consumption of more than 180 units by more than half. Now, Sri Lankan-bound Iranian fishing vessel carrying nearly 200 kilograms of heroin was intercepted in a joint operation carried out by India's Narcotics Control Unit and the Indian Navy. According to the Deputy Director General of India's Narcotic Control Unit, S.K. Singh, 6 Iranian crew members have been also arrested along with the heroin consignment. According to Singh, a Pakistani vessel had initially carried this heroin consignment, which was originally sourced from Afghanistan, and transferred it to an Iranian boat mid-sea. He added that the contraband was destined for Sri Lanka and a part of it was meant for India. Singh also said that the suspects made an attempt to escape by jumping into the sea, and they had tried to dump the heroin consignment into deep waters. India's Narcotic Control Unit, however, said that any links to terrorists have not yet been found. Now in your business news, Sri Lanka has been named as one of the top 20 travel locations in the world for 2022 by Condé Nast Traveller, a luxury and lifestyle travel magazine. In the recently published list of the winners of Condé Nast's Reader's Choice Awards, Sri Lanka was ranked 17th among the top 20 countries to visit in 2022 with a score of 88.1. Further, at the Reader's Choice Awards, Sri Lanka also broke into the top 10 friendliest countries to visit in 2022, ranking 9th ahead of the Philippines. The magazine says, from children to the elderly, the people of Sri Lanka are known for their love of visitors and genuine desire to help. Now, stocks fell yesterday as traders evaluated September's jobs report, which showed the unemployment rate continuing to decline and sparked an increase in interest rates in the US. Analysts predict that the Fed is due to hike rates when they meet again next month, as its attempt to cool down the US labor market has not been successful so far.
Yesterday's losses trimmed the gains of what started out as a big comeback week for stocks. The major averages still ended the week higher but gave back most of the gains from the rally that kicked it off. The Dow rose 2% for the week, while the S&P added 1.5%. The Nasdaq eked out a 0.7% gain. According to official sources within the government, the US economy added 263,000 jobs in September, slightly below the Dow Jones estimate of 275,000. However, the unemployment rate came in at 3.5%, down from 3.7% in the previous month, in a sign that the jobs picture continues to strengthen even as the Federal Reserve tries to slow the economy with the rate hikes to stem inflation. The Federal Reserve looks almost certain to deliver a fourth straight 75 basis point interest rate hike next month after the unemployment data showed that its aggressive rate hikes so far this year have done little to cool the US labor market. Pricing of futures tied to the Fed's policy rate implied a 92% chance that the Fed will raise its policy rate, now at 3% to 3.25%, to a 3.75% to 4% range when it meets on the 1st and 2nd of November.
Now, the OPEC Plus organization's decision this week to cut oil production despite stiff US opposition has further strained already tense relations between President Joe Biden's White House and Saudi Arabia's royal family. The output cut will put upward pressure on US oil prices as the US heads for its midterm elections, where the Biden administration's handling of the cost of living crisis will be a key issue for voters.
The White House pushed hard to prevent the OPEC output cut of 2 million barrels of oil per day starting in November. Biden hopes to keep US gasoline prices from spiking again ahead of midterm elections in which his Democratic Party is struggling to maintain control of the US Congress. Washington also wants to limit Russia's energy revenue during the Ukraine war. In recent days, senior US officials from energy, foreign policy and economic teams urged their foreign counterparts to vote against an output cut. Washington's handling of the Iran nuclear deal and withdrawal of support for a Saudi-led coalition's offensive military operation in Yemen have upset Saudi officials, as have the release of a report tying the 2018 killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and actions against Russia after the February 2022 invasion of Ukraine. A US push for a price cap on Russian oil is causing uncertainty, Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman told Bloomberg TV after the OPEC cut, noting the lack of details and lack of clarity about how it will be implemented. On Thursday, Biden called the decision to cut oil output a disappointment, adding Washington could take further action in the oil market.
That's all the news we have for this evening. Join us again tomorrow at the same time. Good night.